Today, we're diving into something that's probably driven all of us a little crazy at some point, the Romeo and Juliet effect. We're going to break down the powerful psychology behind why, for some reason, we get so obsessed with the very things we can't have.
Okay, let's just start with a feeling we all know. I want you to think about that one person you just could not get out of your head. You know the one, maybe they were a little distant, kind of hard to read, or maybe they just took forever to text back. Did that little bit of unavailability just act like a magnet, pulling you in even stronger?
Yeah, if that sounds familiar, you are definitely not alone. And that's where we're kicking things off, with what we're calling the unavailability magnet. This isn't about some personal flaw. It's a super powerful, totally predictable part of being human.
So the first thing you got to get is that this intense feeling, it doesn't mean you're needy or insecure or anything like that. No, this is deep, it's ancient, evolutionary wiring that's kicking into gear. It's literally part of how our brains are built. Okay, so now let's get to the real core of this thing. It turns out barriers don't actually kill desire, they pour gasoline on it. We're calling this section obstacles as oxygen.
I mean, think about it, right? There's a reason Shakespeare didn't write a famous tragedy about a couple that had a super easy, totally approved of relationship. It's because obstacles are the very oxygen that keeps that flame of desire burning so bright. Without them, the story just kind of fizzles out.
And listen, this isn't just some poetic idea, okay? This is backed up by actual research. A big study back in 1972 found a direct link. The more that parents tried to interfere with a young couple's relationship, the more intensely in love that couple said they were. The barrier itself was actually making the bond stronger. Wild, right?
So this whole thing actually has a name. It's called psychological reactance. And really, it's our brain's knee-jerk reaction anytime we feel our freedom is being threatened. The second we feel like something is forbidden, or just out of reach, or that it's being taken away from us, a switch flips inside, and we start to want it way, way more.
So if that reactance thing is the spark, our next section explains the fuel. Let's take a look at what's going on inside our own heads, inside what I like to call your brain's fantasy factory.
So when you don't have full 24/7 access to someone, when you're only getting these little bits and pieces of their time and attention, your brain goes into what's called idealization mode. It takes the tiny amount of information it has, and your imagination just generously fills in all the blank spaces, usually with nothing but perfect, amazing qualities.
And this creates this huge split, right? On one side, you've got the fantasy projection, this perfect person who's so funny and so deep, and they just get you. And on the other side, well, you've got the complex reality, a normal, flawed human being that, let's be honest, you don't actually know that well. That distance is exactly what allows you to fall for the fantasy, not the real person. Okay, so we've got the psychology down, but what about the biology? What's happening on a chemical level? Well, Section 4 is all about the powerful brain chemistry driving this whole thing, the dopamine slot machine.
See, this whole chase is basically run by your brain's reward center, the nucleus accumbens, and the chemical that makes it all go is dopamine. But, and this is the part most people get wrong, dopamine doesn't really spike when you get the reward, it spikes most intensely during the anticipation of the reward. It's all about the chase, not the capture.
And that leads to this absolutely brilliant analogy. An inconsistent, unavailable person is basically a slot machine with a heartbeat. The sheer uncertainty of when you're going to get that reward, a text, a call, maybe just a sign of affection, is what keeps you pulling that lever over and over, flooding your system with dopamine. It becomes incredibly addictive. So let's just stop and reframe this whole thing for a second. You think you're chasing a person, but you're really not. You're chasing a dopamine rush. You are chasing the idealized story that your own brain built around the obstacles they represent. Man, this all sounds pretty powerful, doesn't it? Almost like it's impossible to escape. But here's the good news. You can absolutely regain control. Our final section is all about taking action. It's how to break the spell. And the process is surprisingly simple, though I'm not saying it's always easy. It's really just 2 steps. First, you have to consciously recognize, oh, wow, I'm doing it again. I'm caught in the pattern of chasing someone who's unavailable. And second, you just have to name what's happening. The simple act of labeling it gives you power over it. So here's the tool. Here is the exact phrase I want you to use. The next time you feel that obsessive pull, I want you to say this to yourself, maybe even out loud. My brain is in a dopamine chase loop. It's so simple, but it creates distance. It's a reminder that you're not desperately in love with a fantasy. You're just a human, with a very human brain,
stuck in a biological feedback loop.
Which brings us to our final thought. That idealized person, the one shimmering just out of reach, a lot of the time, they aren't the real thing at all. They're just a reflection of what you want. So, the question I want to leave you with is this. Have you ever chased a counterfeit moon?